Good evening, everybody. Streaming in live from the US, and for those streaming in from Australia, good day. Hope you all had a fantastic weekend. We've definitely started on a much different note to last week's call. I remember last week when we started our session, we actually had quite a crazy market activity. We were experiencing 20 to 40 to 60 ticks difference between the bid and the ask. So we've definitely had a much quieter start to this week, so hopefully it's a sign of things to come. We've really we don't need that crap in our life, basically. We don't need to have crazy markets flying in all directions. We probably saw the biggest manipulation and corruption in the history of trading last week and the last couple of weeks, actually. So let's hope we actually have some stable market conditions. But, even with our crazy market activity, members of the DTB system, we're still able to generate some really good results with their trading. And I think I have I seem like I don't have the latest slides for that. I might not have put them in. Oh dear. Just give me 1 second. I think I can quickly pull them up if I click on the right folders over here. Just give me one moment. Okay, and there, so many folders and clickety clicks. Okay, that one, and okay, and almost there. Maybe I need some glasses, man. My eyes. Okay, last week's performance. Okay, oh my gosh. Okay, let me sort something out. Sorry, guys, this is a little bit unprepared. All right, so I'm going to put these three quickly inside here, like that. Nice. And then I'm going to share this one. Okay, so last week's performance, so we still had some members able to put some really good results, with their trading. So thank you for continually posting in our chats. Obviously, we had some losing days too. I haven't gone and dissected. I'm not going to, you can go and look through the whole group calls, the group results chat there. So that's all there. So, yeah, that's really great. So this week, what we're going to be doing, we're going to be looking at our new strategy that I've added to the DTB assembly. So if you run the script and you update the assembly correctly, you will see that the DTB price action strategy is there. So anybody who's experiencing issues, just redo the process again, because it is there, and I can confirm it's there because I've done it on my VPS, which is a customer version of the tools. So that is there, unless there's some jinxing going on my side, but I don't think so. It's definitely in there. Okay, so we're going to look at that, and we're also going to just review some small little updates I made to the baseline wick trader strategy, because that was experiencing some order management issues. So, when you're dealing with retail trading platforms and you're dealing with, retail data feeds, there's a lot of things that can actually go wrong with trading. A lot of things that can go wrong with orders and the speed of orders, and especially over the last couple of weeks where the market has been flying in all directions. And even today, I'm actually just looking at my chart. Even today, I can see like price gaps over there. So what that basically means, now the DTB bars is extremely accurate in showing you price. And it's going to update on every single tick that it receives. So it's not going to be filling in spaces, where the price should have been. It's basically going to give you that very up-to-date, accurate price information. And sometimes the data we're receiving from our data providers is crap. I mean, most of us are paying $6 to $12 a month for our data feed. You can guarantee the banks and institutions who are trading, high frequency, they've got huge, accounts. They're paying probably $1,000 a month to $10,000 a month for their data feed. We're paying like a, off the top type of a data feed, which we have to deal with, obviously, unless we decide to pay a lot more. But this is basically what we're dealing with. So sometimes you're going to see, like over here, like that's where the price was. This is where the price was. And then the very next tick that came in, that's where the price was. So it completely jumps price. And sometimes that can cause order management issues, especially if you've got stops and targets. You see, it affects more the stops than the targets, because, the target is just market, but the stops are generally limits. So sometimes the price could jump over and, can cause huge issues with our orders. And we saw this quite extensively, during last week. If I scroll right back, you can see huge jumps in price. If I just go back far enough, you could just see there's often just huge jumps in price. So we've got to be careful of that. And, as a result of that, I've also done some major updates to the baseline wick trader strategy, because we work with limit orders on one of our main strategies. And, and it's important to be able to have, a system in place that can also accommodate the discrepancies or the issues that we may experience as a result of either platform malfunctions or data feed malfunctions. And, this is where, I spent a lot of work. I always spend a lot of work, dealing with this type of thing. So looking at I'm just going to load up the baseline wick trader before we jump into our update. So if I load up the baseline wick trader and I just activate this strategy on any chart, you're not going to notice any cosmetic differences to the actual the stuff in the front of the strategy. So all of these settings are the same as they were before. So just random activation of a strategy. Obviously, this isn't suited to the market that we're in. We haven't optimized it to this specific data feed or anything like that. But what we've done over here, you'll notice, is that I've actually put the order numbers. Now you'll see over there, it's got 4 and 4. Okay, so that's not actually what happens. So what happens when you're trading futures, okay, and say you got 4 contracts at different price levels, NinjaTrader is more than likely, and the broker is more than likely not going to fill those 4 contracts at the exact same time as where you put your limit order, even though it's supposed to do that. Often it might fill 2, or it might fill 3, it might fill 1, and some, like 80% of the time it will fill the 4, but sometimes it's going to have issues with filling, all those orders, which is crazy in this day and age. Considering the hundreds of millions of orders being processed, that, you can't submit 4 orders and they get filled. It's bullshit. Sorry, my French. So the point of this is that, it's maybe not a good idea to place too many orders or groups of orders at certain price levels, because what happens is when the strategy submits an order, it basically attaches a order ID and a reference number, and it's a whole chain of numbers for that order. And what happens is the price touches that level, the strategy expects all of those orders to be filled, but what actually happens is only some of those orders are filled, and the price drops again and then tries to refill those orders, but it's still got that same reference number. So then it says, unable to, fill these orders or cancel out these orders, and orders cannot be reused. So all the crap that comes with that. So one of the things that we can do to mitigate that is definitely reduce the orders that we are placing at different levels. Now, and especially, we're trading a very active market period, which is the 9:35 till 11. So we can actually have issues there. So if we had to reduce these to 1 and 1 as an example, And I'm just going to activate this strategy, taking all 4 of those entries. So basically what it's going to be doing is going to be entering four orders, but at different levels. So by doing that and activating that, we're going to see that it's going to maybe just change the data series over here. Let me just go and check this. I need to change the bar size. It's not suited for this bar size. So let me just go for I'll just go 2020 and just go for like 3 days. Hopefully it doesn't take too long to actually show us what I'm trying to explain. Okay, give this a second. It'll probably load 2 days. It should be more than enough. Oh no, that's fine. It's coming up. Okay. Oh, I'm trying to find a place where all 4 get filled. Oh, you know what? I've probably got a setting in there that I haven't actually updated, and it's the entries per direction. So I've got entries per direction as 2, so it's only going to fill in the 2. My bad. So I'm going to make that 4 and do this again, and then activate that. And let me just take off this camera. So there you can see. So you got 1, 2, 3 of those orders filled, but you'll notice that every single order number has got a different reference number, because obviously every order is independent of each other. So that's basically what we're trying to do over here. And I know it looks very, messy, but this is just my work behind the scenes. I mean, I will eventually remove all this extra text. We don't need to see it on the chart, but it's not going to kill anybody having it there. But that's just giving us a full-on order reference, for the specific order that's been submitted, so that the stops and targets know how to deal with the orders. Now, is it 100% foolproof? Well, unfortunately, nothing is 100% foolproof in this world, especially when it comes to, trading platforms and data feeds. But, even running very fast playback, I've noticed that it works fine. And running it live on Friday, it worked pretty well without giving me any errors. I mean, look at this crap we had to deal with last week. Anyway, so that's a good thing about the baseline week trader. So I know a few of you guys have been commenting on order management issues. So I'm really hoping this makes a huge difference, because there's been a considerable amount of work behind the scenes to make sure that this works very effectively. And it might just have been the last 2 weeks we just had extremely volatile market activity, which has really stretched the trading platform, the data feeds, and possibly even the strategies, although the strategies are coded in a very specific way. But there could have just have been some issues along the line. Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk to you about that. All right, now the next thing I wanted to cover was our price action strategy. So if I go back over here and I just remove the strategy from the chart, and I make this a 10, 200, 5 days is okay. Give this a moment to load. So on the previous call, I discussed, I basically mentioned that I was working on a strategy, working on price action. It has been a crazy week trying to get this thing out and working on it. It's not as simple as what I expected it to be, but basically the intention behind the strategy, oh my goodness, why is this stupid thing showing this stuff? I just got to cancel out these old orders. So basically the intention behind the strategy was to create a automated process where the strategy is basically acting on specific bar patterns that happen. So like over there, this is typical market manipulation, right? Like this is 100% typical how the banks and institutions trade. So they'll be pushing the price down, they will take out stops and then continue push the price down. I mean, that's just what they do all the time. That's why when people enter positions, they very often get stopped out, because the price very seldom just runs in one direction and it doesn't retrace. So we're trying to pick up very specific times where the market acts in a very specific way, like that, and then enter positions on that. So what we've done is, I started building the strategy that had multiple different bar series within the strategy. But then what I've ended up doing, I mean, it was a hell of a job, because I actually originally coded 3 different inbuilt data series within the strategy. But unfortunately with NinjaTrader, you can't actually optimize strategies effectively using inbuilt data series. So you kind of have to use the chart that you're working on. So what I've done is I've removed all those inbuilt data series, and I've just used the predominant bars in progress 0, which is the default data series that the chart is loaded on. And we've got a stop ticks and a target ticks, and I've got a tune fork, which I'll tell you more about in a moment. But let me just activate the strategy and I'll show you what it looks like on the trading chart. Okay, so like there's that example over there. So you'll see there's an entry. It's going a long position. That one got stopped out because it didn't reach the target ticks. But then there's the short entry that hit its target ticks. Now you're also going to notice that this one over here was a long entry for one contract. But then what I've done is and this is the first time I've actually done this with any of our DTB strategies, which is a bloody good idea actually, is I've actually increased the trade size on the next position. So if a trade loses a position, on the next trade, it's going to just add a contract, and it's going. So that's to help make up the loss, and and work that way. So that's how that works. You can see there's one contract, there's one. Now, for some reason, okay, and I put this down to a term that I refer to as the mysteries of NinjaTrader. Okay, and I'll leave it at that. Now, this strategy is 100% programmed to monitor exact bar formations. And that is why it is acting on these very specific entries. But unbeknownst to humankind, NinjaTrader decides, hey, you know what? We're just going to enter some random trades here and there. And that's basically what's happening over here. So sometimes we're going to see trades entering where those very specific conditions weren't met. But then again, look at the time of the day. There were so many bars processed at so fast, something was thrown off. So that's basically what can happen under extreme conditions is, even though the strategy is 100% coded correctly to act on a very, very specific bar formation, we're going to have random entries like this. And I cannot stop them for the life of me. Okay. And what I have done, and that's the tune fork. So the tune fork has helped a bit, but we'll go into that also. So that is basically how the strategy enters. So you can see there, and I mean, even over here, it's not showing the perfect entry. I mean, this was on this bar over here, so it's still showing the right price level, but it's just not on the correct bar. So it's this one basically entered over here. So as you can see, it's entering on these bars. And so, and I've only coded in this one specific chart price action. I mean, this is pure price action. So yeah, again, look, you see, completely random. But this is what you call true price action. If you had to compare this to a 5-minute chart as an example, and I might just do that very quickly. So if I had to put this, and I mean, this is why on a previous, I always say, we don't stuff around with 5-minute bars, because, you're not actually, you're not actually determining proper price action on a minute bar. And this is going to become very clear in a moment. So if we change this to like a 5-minute bar, and I'll make this reasonably similar sized so that we don't have the chart traders here. Maybe I can disable it over here too. Okay, so if you want to identify actual price action, and actually see it clearly, this is what we're looking at. So if I go like this and I go global and I go global over here, you will see, when the DTB bars identifies those very specific, price action, which is very clear because you're getting an immediate up and an immediate down. You're not, if you had to compare that to the 5-minute chart. Let me just go back to find this. So we'll take this one here even. So even looking at this, it's so hard actually. You can't really identify, and this was the same minute, you see, so it's like within 2 minutes. You're not identifying guaranteed price levels on the minute bars because you're basically just looking at bars of random sizes, and the same thing can go over here. Now I'm obviously choosing sections which are in the same minute, which is not going to help me. I've got to go to where the market was over a prolonged period of time. And these are all like, we had such crazy market activity last week, so it's hard. But if you had to review this on a chart, because obviously it's very seldom that you're going to get 200, 400 ticks in like 2-3 minutes, and that's basically what's happened here. So they're within a bar. So you only, sometimes you could have hours of time go by on the 5-minute bars, and you're going to have all these random, candles up and down. But, looking at the DTB bars, you can see the guaranteed price levels with the baseline breaks, and you can actually see without the noise of minute bars, you can see what the actual price action is. That's the only way to identify proper price action, is by looking at that. So, this is what the main point is of this. But unfortunately, we're dealing with a very small period of time on these minute bars with the last price actions. And if I switch to a much larger bar size, we can do the same thing. So that didn't quite work out, but I'll show that on another call because it's so clear as day. Okay, so going back to this, so that's what you're going to see happen with this strategy. It's going to be entering specifically on those. See, there's that immediate up, immediate down. So that's like, we're trying to look for abnormal chart patterns or abnormal, price action where certain things happen. And as I said, I've only really put in the one very specific signal, and that is, a bar that goes straight up and straight down. Because many times, if you had to evaluate a trading day, you can, we did this on a previous call too, where we've actually highlighted this specific formation happening very, very frequently on all different bar sizes. So how would we work with this? So we can go into our chart trader. What's this thing called? Strategy Control Center. We can go to New Strategy Analyzer. So, that's one of the reasons why I've also put this chart or the strategy within one data series, is because we're actually able to use it within the strategy analyzer. So if we go to optimization and we choose our price action strategy, and we can start with just the template that is already existing over there. Okay, so that's the template over there. So the only thing we really have to optimize over here is from the top. Obviously we've got our daily stops and targets. I put this in late, just before I release the strategy. So just to have daily stops and targets. But it's basically only our stop ticks, target ticks, and tune fork. Okay, so tune fork. So basically what the tune fork is when you adjust this. So you'll see now if I go to strategies if I go into the strategy and I adjust this, if I adjust this tune fork to number 1, like this, you're going to notice that it's going to enter less trades because it is trying its absolute best to make sure it's basically having a range of price where it's like a tolerance. It's like a tolerance of the bar open and close for the signal. So that the tune fork's like a tolerance. And you'll see over there, like there's the trade entered, there's the target. So that's set on 1, which is like very, very fine tuned to be able to act on those signals like this, as you can see. And, you know, but, you know, even with that set like this, and I'm just going to go back to all the entries on here. So like there's that signal over there. But, you know, even with all of that, like this signal for some reason missed, because, you know, if you hone into this, you'll see that there's a very slight difference between where the bar opened, where the bar closed. I mean, the price moved so fast over here that it basically had a very, very small price gap. And that's why this signal wasn't kept or wasn't acted upon, because it's been fine-tuned too much to work on like exact tick value. So the tune fork is more like a tick value type of a filter to ensure that as close as possible only the right signals are acted upon. Okay, so like there's one over there going good. That one's good. This one over here, I don't know what the hell happened there, but same thing. Look at the time. It's 10:18. It's like microseconds, and something happened there to cause this signal from happening, you know? So even when I did this, I was still not able to get 100% accuracy on the entries by adjusting that, you know, tuning right down. But it definitely still removed, it removed a lot of the false entries, but it also kind of negated some of the legitimate entries. So that's why I added that thing in there. And, you know, if you look at this, you'll see most of the time it's going to act only on those signals, which is doing pretty well over here. But again, you know, look over here. We've got a random trade over there. Again, you know, that's not coded in the strategy, but for some reason, you know, that's what's happened. So going into this, you know, you'll see the performance of this is going to be slightly different. So you've got, like this one is saying 4,000 with a 630 drawdown, 98 commission. And if we look at the trades themselves, and this is where I wanted to show you too, where the trades increase in value. So you'll see there's a 1 trade, 1, 1, 1. This one was a losing trade, you see? So the next trade went to 2 contracts, and, you know, it did that. Then the next trade was a losing, then the next one was a winning. Losing, and then winning. You see, 1, 2, 3. So that the third one was a third contract. So you'll see most of the time, you know, I've seen it go up to 7 or 8. It's just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's not going to be doubling the contracts. I mean, we don't want to break the bank, obviously, you know, by using a heavy martingale strategy here. We're just using a very simple, you know, incremental one over here. You can see 1 trade losing. So you'll see 1, 2. There's a 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, and very often the 4th trade is not going to make up the profit of the losing trades, but it's definitely going to help, right? So that was the idea behind this. So you'll see there's a lot of trades in different sizes over here. So those are automatically set up in the strategy. And another very cool thing about this strategy, which I've also first time implemented, is when the strategy is active, you're not going to see the stop ticks and target ticks in the market. You're only going to see the order. So I've basically hidden the stops and targets from the market. I've hidden the stops and targets from the exchange. Nobody knows where our stops and targets are. Okay? Very cool thing. I mean, we all know stops and targets or stops are hunted. And this is obviously with micros, we're stuffing around on a retail trading platform. we're not really, we're not a big fish, right? But, who says we can't use this down the track when we're trading, hundreds of contracts, right? On a professional system. But anyway, so what happens is the strategy is recording incremental price movements, and you'll see that the strategy is actually calculating on each tick. So this strategy calculates on each tick, and the stops and targets are built into the strategy at price levels. So whatever stop and target that you have, it's when the price touches that level, it's going to exit that position. So it's not going to be using actual stops and targets or using additional orders, which is great because we're not overloading NinjaTrader, but the strategy is still going to say, okay, when the price touches this level, it must exit. And that's what it's doing. So that's what you're going to notice with the strategy. It's just going to enter positions and then exit, behind the scenes with that. So nobody's going to know where our stops and targets are. I mean, not that it's a big thing, like I said, with what we're doing. But it's just another cool little feature that I thought, what, let me play with this, because I like to stretch my, what I do. I don't like doing the same thing over and over again, right? So that's what that's going to do. Now, as I said, I've only put in the one specific signal. Now, it doesn't mean that this is a set and forget strategy, okay? So if we look at this right now, and just for interest sakes, I'm actually going to go into here, and I'm going to open up this here. And when playing around with this and adjusting this tuning fork, okay, like I think I could go as high as 50. I think it's 50 is the 50 is the maximum, okay? So putting it on 50, and I wouldn't encourage obviously you doing this, because it's basically throwing off the signals a little bit, but it's entering a lot more positions, on the strategy. And maybe that's a bit high. So, I mean, this is the cool thing about this is it can all be optimized, you see. Now, I was getting crazy figures in the 20,000s for the week, for the last 2 weeks on the strategy by adjusting these, these values slightly. And obviously that can be done in the analyzer. Well, let's just open the analyzer and do that, right? So there's the strategy analyzer. And let's go between, 1 and 50. We've got specific times of the day, which is fine. And I'm only optimizing the last 2 weeks. And that's another thing. If you go back and you optimize the last month, you're going to see there's a very different result for the previous weeks compared to, the weeks that we're in now. And that's just because, that specific signal, that specific 200 up, 200 down was not as successful previously. So, there's going to be different ranges that you can work with. So, this strategy is not set on a specific bar size. You can basically choose your bar size that you want to work on and, put that in here. So you put your bar size in here that you want to work with. You adjust your stop ticks and your target ticks, which can also be optimized, by the way. I'm just going to run this like this. But once you do that, you can, stop ticks and target ticks. So there's very little to actually optimize on the strategy. You haven't got multiple settings to optimize, other than just your stop and target ticks, as well as your tune fork. So these are not, it's not going to be very system intensive. So, I did about 50 optimizations in a row with this, and it only used about 5, it used very little of my my memory. So the memory was staying very, very low, running this this strategy on multiple optimizations. And I've just barely touched the surface of what we actually have, what we're capable of on this thing. So I'll just let this run. Hopefully it will not take too much longer. We've got our start times, our end times in there. So that those all work well. I did make sure that was working. We've also got our blackout periods, which are the same as the other strategies, where we can block out very specific times of the day. Any questions, just pop them in the group calls chat. I am monitoring that. Yeah, I mean, hidden stops and targets are pretty cool. I mean, you have to admit, not many companies, not many people will work with that. Not many. I don't know any other automated strategy that has hidden stops and targets. And it's not actually a very complicated thing to do. It just requires people with foresight and intelligence to think of things. Not that I'm highly intelligent, but I like to create, and that's why we've got such an incredible system here. Most people just want to market, you see. They just want to get crappy tools, market the hell out of it, and move on to the next one. Move on to the next one. That's why all these companies are offering hundreds and hundreds of indicators and a brand new one every single week. Whereas we, very seldom actually release new things. We rather fine tune and hone what we are working on. Okay, so I'm just looking at the chat over here on the side. So, while you are, I've noticed that this takes a little bit long to start. When you do stops and target ticks, it's like super quick. But I think this tuning fork one just works a little bit differently. It's using it's using a lot more initial resources to get going. I wonder if I'll just leave it for a moment. Am I able to bring that chart back up again? Yeah. So with this, and I might just reduce this again, just to a different value. Let's see. It was just very strange adjusting this specific value and then seeing what it actually did to the to the results on the chart. And some of them are not very good, obviously. That's why we've got to use the optimization for this. But to get it activating or entering what we specifically needed to do, that's see there, look at that, look how that jumped considerably from 12,000 to 1,600. So we can look at the signals that are generated. You see it's, but like I said, I wouldn't also trust these entries because look, the market just went absolute apeshit during the last week, right? So it's very, very hard to actually trust some of these entries because the market was moving considerably fast, but we're still getting those signals. But then what I did notice was it was entering a few more positions. And again, look there. So we had losing trade, losing trade, losing trade, losing trade, and then this was the 4 entries. And one more thing too, if we go into the strategy settings, I know I'm dumping a lot of information at the moment. There is a setting here that I've actually temporarily just hidden away. But what basically happens is there's a 10 tick decrement. Decrement, is that the right word? It's the opposite of increment. Decrement, probably that. So what happens is every single position that it enters. So if the first trade loses, the second trade is going to enter 2 contracts, but it's going to have 10 ticks less as a target. The third trade's going to have 10 ticks less of a target again, and the fourth tick is going to have 10 ticks less. So what it's trying to do is it's trying to hit its target. So it's saying, okay, we're picking up these signals, we're going to act on these signals, let's try hit our target. So that's why when you do this and you look at the 4th position, you'll see that the 4th position only hits 270 ticks. That'll be 270 ticks profit. But if you look at the strategy settings, you will see that the target ticks is 300. So this probably was 260. I might just have moved it a bit. So, but that'll be like 260. So every time it enters the next position, if it's a losing position, the previous one, it's going to have a target of just 10 ticks less. So this is a little thing I'm playing around with. I tried incrementing it and then it didn't work out as well. So the decrementing actually made a big difference. Because we're chasing a reasonably large target over here. See, look, this is also weird. Look, enter the position over there. and over there, not what we've selected. But, that tuning fork has provided a few more entries, and, we just have to judge how that actually works. So for absolute fine tuning of the strategy, it's best to use number 1 over here. I have put in 10 as the setting, so yeah, you can use 10, but if you want to, you can also use 1. It's obviously going to enter much fewer positions, and they're probably going to be following that rule a lot closer, but they also may be missing some legitimate trading opportunities. So you'll see there's a big difference between that. Let's go back over here. Okay, so there's an optimization that's just completed. See, now look at the difference there. We were getting 4,000, now that's 25,000. You see what happens when you're using the analyzer. But then we also got much higher drawdowns on this specific one. Okay, so that, and look at this. It's like completely flat, goes up. It's a little bit all over the place and a lot of trades. So again, I'm not trusting any of this crap over the last 2 weeks because we had ridiculous price movements. Okay, so work with this, guys. Don't put your heart and soul into it. We haven't actually achieved anything amazing here yet. Like I said, I've only put in the 1 signal. And while you guys are working with this, it's a good idea to review price action, because this is how you can accurately see price action, right? And not only on this bar, you might be looking at other bars. Any bars that have got guaranteed price levels, which is obviously the DTB bars. You can basically go to, even if you want to go to a, I don't know, let's go to a 50-20 bar as an example. And let's just choose the last, will 2 days work? I think 2 days might work. So if we go like a 50-20 bar, you might pick up very specific chart patterns over here, because this is pure price action, right? Because you're seeing guaranteed price levels. So you might notice something that is continuously putting itself out there. And maybe this was not the best example because look, we still got these huge gaps in price where we're not getting accurate data come in. But there are definitely other types of charts that you can work with that work with guaranteed price levels. Shit, even a same size bar could be the thing. And you might say, out of the last 6 bars, we're looking at this very specific thing. So you might say, okay, well, if there's 2 bars up, 2 bars down, 2 bars up, okay, we're going to sell on that. Now, I just thumb suck that right now. You know what I mean? But, if you can identify specific types of, chart patterns that are happening, and we're not, like I said, we're not messing around with minute bars. These are guaranteed price levels. So it's like, this could also happen generally over 10, 15, 20, 35 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever minutes, doesn't matter. We don't have that noise on these bars. We have guaranteed moves, 50 ticks up, 50 ticks down. 50 ticks down, 50 ticks up, 50 ticks up, 50 ticks down. It's like there's no noise over here. It's like those are guaranteed price levels over, what doesn't matter what period. It's just like that is where they move the market. So, that's an idea. And there's nothing stopping you from also optimizing using those specific bar sizes. So even with this, and I'll do this very briefly, then we can actually end the call. I might just do this 1 to 20. And let's just randomly, I don't know how this is going to work, but let's go for the 50 and the 50. I don't know what this is going to look like. I have no idea. This is the first time I'm running this. But, based on that very specific chart pattern that I've programmed in, which is a straight up and straight down, monitoring the bars around it, because that's what it's basically doing, we'll see what this one does. But that's what we can also be focusing on, while looking at this. Yeah, and the signal charts might help a lot. You might go over here and you say, what, I'm going to load up the signal chart, show me the money, or any of the. You might even have created a very, very cool signal chart, of your own making, and you could be looking at this and you're saying, oh well, okay, let me have a look at where price is reversing. what type of price action are we seeing around good price reversals? That could also be a way of analyzing, price action and looking at, what price is likely doing. You might see specific things happening here. They'll be like, wow, that actually makes sense. And then you can review it by seeing, okay, what is price doing at those levels? What type of, see, like there's that thing there too. You see, look, 2, 2, 2. I mean, I just thumb sucked that on the previous thing. But, we've got this amazing toolbar on the left here, which we can use to highlight things. Like there, I just clicked the circle, the eclipse. And, you can go back and you can look at specific things on the chart. And maybe it's, maybe you could just highlight just random things and, just look at them in general. And, we can also incorporate arrows and stuff into the strategy. So we can do price action and arrows. Like at the moment, we've only done, see, that didn't work. See, at the moment, we've only done the very specific price action. We haven't done anything else combined with that. Anyway, guys, that's a lot of information for one session. So you see that didn't work. So that it means maybe just looking at something else. I'm not going to run this. I'm not going to keep you guys while this is running, but there's definitely things that we can be looking at. All right. I think we'll leave it there, guys. Thank you so much for jumping on the call. Let's work on this strategy this week. But like I said, don't put your heart and soul into it. Work with what you're already working with. Run this on a separate sim account, for the week ahead, just to see, how it's taking positions. Maybe run a few optimizations just to see how that is functioning. And what we'll also do is, we've got to look at our game plan. So I'm still going to do the game plan for the week ahead. I was working crazy hours on this strategy. So just working on all different things. And, eventually we'll add the buttons and we'll add all the stuff that goes with strategies. But, at this beginning stage, we just want to get the signals themselves to work. And then we can add in, all the rest of the, the buttons, the trade direction and all that stuff later on. Excellent. Okay. Thank you so much, guys, for jumping on, and let's have a kick-ass week. Watch out for the game plan update before the US session starts, which will be, obviously 9:35 a.m. So, long before that, I'm going to have the game plan ready, and I may even use the templates that have been created in our chat. So I see that, you guys have really contributed beautifully to the chat over here for our, excuse me. You've put in some very good templates over here. So I'm going to review some of these templates, maybe use some of them as the game plan. I really want to go and do that. Instead of going to try and create brand new ones from scratch, which is very time consuming, and we'll go from there. Thank you, guys. Have a fantastic week. And look at this. Okay, so this was an optimization I just quickly did, 1050 while I was finishing off. So I mean, you can see there's definitely things we can do with the strategy. But like I said, we just got to take it easy at this stage. Okay, guys, keep well and chat next week. Thank you.